Hey friends, this is Mike Holt, and I want to welcome you to a Life That Wins personal outreach series. Through this series, you're going to be empowered to have two critical discussions with one unchurched person in your life. In fact, think of these two discussions as a railroad track. Just as a railroad track has two rails so that the train will get to its final destination, personal outreach also consists of two critical discussions that we must have with our unchurched friend. The first discussion, or the first rail, is a discussion with your life. All we're asking you to do is to host a Matthew party. That is simply just hanging out and having fun with your unchurched friend. The second rail, or the second discussion, is with your lips. That is simply inviting your friend to church. That's it. That's the challenge. Two rails, two discussions. One with your life, the other one with your lips. A Matthew party and an invitation to church. That's the challenge. And guess what? You can do it. So let's jump right into our personal outreach series and look at the first principle that will empower us to influence others towards Christ, and that is decisiveness. Well, I want to welcome you to the first session of our personal outreach series entitled A Life That Wins. Throughout this series, we're going to be talking about 6 principles of not only a winning life, but a life that influences others towards Christ. Our first principle is simply this: decisiveness. It's taken out of 1 Samuel chapter 14, verse 1 says this: One day, Jonathan, son of Saul, said to the young man bearing his armor, "Come, let's go over to the Philistine outpost on the other side." If you continue down in the story, the scripture says that Jonathan makes this comment: "Perhaps the Lord will act on our behalf, for nothing can hinder the Lord from saving, whether by many or by few." Throughout the book, A Life That Wins, and throughout this series that you're engaged in with Reach the City, we're talking about 6 principles of a winning life. These same 6 principles are also the principles of a life that influences others towards Christ, and decisiveness is the first of those principles. Verse 1 states this: One day, Jonathan made a decision, made up his mind, literally looks out at the enemy and says, "My God is bigger than that enemy," and not only that, but my people, the Israelites, God's people, were not created for this. See, what happened was the Philistines, Israel's enemy of that day, had stripped them of all of the military weapons and all the sources of provision. And so basically, God's people were left without protection and without provision. And now Jonathan looks at 600 men who are frozen up underneath a tree, literally doing nothing at all. And he had this moment. One day. I'm asking you throughout this series to have a one day kind of moment between you and the Lord. That not only is your life created for more, but your life is created to reach others for Jesus Christ. We have to have in our spirit somewhere some kind of eternal goal. I know that making goals is very popular in our worlds personally, and as leaders or in businesses, we all make goals. But what about eternal goals? What about the goal of saying, one day when I'm in heaven, I want somebody to come up to me and say, "Because of you and because of Jesus, I'm walking the streets of gold today." Hey, who knows? Maybe my mansion in heaven will be next door to the neighbor I led to Jesus on the earth. How about an eternal goal? My life counts for eternal value in the life of somebody else, and it all starts with decisiveness. In this session, let me just outline a few decisions that we've got to make when it comes to reaching our unchurched friends. The first one is simply this: we have got to pray for those who do not know Christ. I know that seems easy and almost elementary, but why is it that prayer is often the last thing we do when it should be the first thing we do, especially when it comes to personal outreach and reaching the unchurched? I don't know of a better story that illustrates the power of prayer than when my own mother came to know the Lord. I grew up in an alcoholic home. My mother battled severe depression, and when I was 17 years old, I gave my life to Christ. And if there was one thing I wanted more than anything, it was for my family to come to know Jesus. And so I did everything I could to lead them to Christ. I'll never forget the time my sister walks in and she makes an announcement at the dinner table that my dog had died. His name was Tramp. I don't know why I named him that, but Tramp had died. And as a family, we walked out around this pine tree where their Tramp laid, and of course he was dead, rigor mortis dead. And Everybody kind of got teary-eyed and